The universe speaks to you. Are you listening? Sometimes we get guidance and sometimes we get warnings. I'll share two stories where I very clearly got warnings, one where I listened and one where I didn't. And then I'll share a method that you can begin to use to hear your guidance from the universe. Are you ready? Signs from the universe can also come in the form of warnings, and I'm going to share two stories with you. One where I listened and one where I didn't. So the first story is of my dog Storm and the Coyote. I was living in this house that backed up to a natural forest preserve, and we often had deer and lots of little wildlife in our yard. And at the time, I had a brand new puppy. Her name was Storm. She was a blue Weimaraner, love of my life. And I was so happy she came to me at a time when I was getting divorced and I really needed this love, this unconditional love that our animals can give us in our life. And Storm was about 4 months old, and she had a habit of every night waking me up and letting me know that she needed to go to the bathroom. So I would open up my sliding glass door and I would let her out the back door, and she would go off of the little patio on the grass and go to the bathroom. And I would go into my bathroom and I would go to the bathroom as well. She'd come back in and we'd go back to bed. It's been going on for a little while. One night, though, I was out pretty late and I came home and my kids were in bed and it was time to let my dog out. It was about 11 o'clock at night. And I flipped on the floodlight in the backyard, and standing in the middle of my yard was one of the largest coyotes that I had ever seen. And he just stood there and he looked at me, and I opened the door and I yelled at him and he ran off into the forest. And my heart was beating, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've lived in this house I've had this house for 9 months, and I've never seen a coyote. I mean, I used to see coyotes all the time, but I had not seen any for a long time. And I thought, wow, what an incredible warning, because I've been letting my dog go to the bathroom by herself in the middle of the night without being out there with her. A coyote could have easily been around and could have gotten her. And I just felt so relieved and lucky that I had gotten this warning from the universe. So we walked outside and I had socks on and dew was already on the grass. So I stood there on that patio, and Storm went out and she was walking, trying to sniffing, finding a place to go to the bathroom. And I felt like she was getting a little bit too far away from me, and I felt nervous. And I was like, stop, stop. And she began going to the bathroom. And all of a sudden, that coyote came charging out of the woods. I think I was so stunned that a coyote would come so near to a person, and my dog stopped in the middle of going to the bathroom and turned around and ran through the open sliding glass door into the house, into the living room, and behind the couch, where she whined and cried and barked. And I had never heard her bark before. And I turned around and ran into the house myself, just petrified and in complete disbelief that this had happened. So this was more than a warning. This was like the strongest confirmation that my dog was completely in danger. And I thought nonstop about that incident for weeks, months, and even years that had happened. And I felt so lucky that I had gotten that very strong sign, because after that, I never let my little puppy outside without her being on a leash and without me being very near to her. And my kids were 10 and 12 years old. They were never allowed to go out and take her out without having her on the leash and without two of them going out on guard. One would hold the flashlight and look for coyotes, and the other one would be diligently guarding over her as she would go to the bathroom. And what's funny about that is every single day after that event happened, I would see a coyote. I would see them sometimes in my yard. I would see them in the forest preserve. I would see them when I was driving miles and miles away from my house, just running around in the world. And I know that was a strong confirmation, and I heeded it. And my dog now is almost 12 years old and has continued to be such an amazing support and big part of my life. And I feel so lucky that I listened to my warning that day. So not every warning is heeded. And so I'm going to share a second story, a story where I didn't listen to the warning. And that is the story of my chicken, Chicken. So I was in love with the idea of having chickens, and I was given 6 baby chicks, which I named and cherished. I would hold them every single day, and I paid so much attention to them. We built them a really cool chicken coop, and we set up this 9-foot fence around the chicken coop so that they would be protected. We dug it down into the earth so that a squirrel or a raccoon couldn't very easily burrow in and get into the chicken coop. And of course, they had the safe chicken coop where they could go in, and at night we would close the door and they'd be all protected. And the 6 chickens were Peepers, Dinosaur, Purple Guy, Popcorn, and Ladybug, and Chicken. The sign that I had been getting is that I would often see a hawk flying near my house. And I was very concerned that a hawk would get one of my chickens. Now, over top of this open roof area of this fencing was a big tree, a big maple tree that hung down pretty low, almost as like a nice little covering. It was great shade for the chickens. And I expressed this concern that a hawk was going to come and get one of my chickens. And my husband at the time was like, no, that can't happen. It's never going to happen. There's no way a hawk's going to come in. And even if one was flying in, the chickens are going to run into the chicken coop and he's not going to get any of the chickens. But I still was very worried about this. I was starting to have dreams at night that something happened to my chickens. I would get in the car and I would turn on the car and the radio station would be having some random discussion where they would mention chickens. I would be watching a video on the computer and something completely unrelated to chickens, and all of a sudden a video of chickens would come up. And I feel like the universe was definitely trying to get my attention. So one night I went out to go and close the chickens in for the night. It was dusk, and my chickens should have been roosted and inside the chicken coop. And I walked out, and all the chickens were actually out in the little pen, and they weren't roosted inside the chicken house. And I was really, really concerned. And I heard this bang, 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 and I had no idea what it was. It was the oddest sound. And I opened the door of the chicken coop and out flew a hawk. And I looked down and there was one of my chickens dead, killed by the hawk. What had happened is the hawk had flown down into the chicken coop. All the chickens got scared. They all probably ran into the chicken coop. The hawk went in the door after them, killed one of my chickens, and all the rest of the chickens ran out because they knew how to get in and out of the chicken coop. But there was a window that let light into this chicken coop, and the hawk couldn't figure out how to get out. And that bang, bang, bang I was hearing was the hawk flying against that window. And when I opened the door, the hawk flew out. It was a big, sad lesson for me. I felt devastated because these chickens were my responsibility. Nobody else could protect them but me. And here I had been given these warnings, even having dreams, and I had not listened. I had not listened to myself. I listened to somebody else, and he was wrong. So the next day I took a day off of work and I actually took some fencing and I covered that open roof area so that no hawk or any type of predator from the sky could get in and kill any of my other chickens. And it was a difficult lesson for me to have to learn. So if you've ever been given a sign from the universe, some people might say, signs from the universe, signs, we don't get signs, they aren't significant. And, there have been a time when I think that I agree, but I don't think Chicken would agree. After it happened, I thought about how many times I'd been sent the warnings. And now I know that there are situations where you're given a warning and you have to listen. You have to pay attention. You have to heed things that are being repeated over and over again to you. They are actually really signs of the universe because we're all intimately connected. And so it's very easy for you to get signs because we are all part of the same woven matrix, and information can just flow very easily in and out of that matrix. The first thing that we need to do to begin seeing signs from the universe is to ask. And this can come in several different methods. Could be an act of prayer to God, your higher self, universal consciousness, whoever it is that you can relate to as the universe. It could just be a conversation that you have in your head. For some people, it might feel more concrete to write this down in a journal or on a note on your phone. Or maybe you can just have a conversation with a friend or a loved one. But the important thing is, you have to ask. And once you ask, it's really important to listen for the answers. And if I rearrange the letters in the word listen, we get silent. And that's how you can hear the messages and the responses to your questions. There are two ways to live your life, either as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is. Albert Einstein. The universe whispers to you. Will you listen?